A probe into alleged election fraud by former President Trump is moving forward with the selection of a special grand jury. The investigation is focusing on Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia, including that infamous phone call to its Secretary of State asking him to find the votes that Trump needed to win.
Donald Trump, I believe, came one step closer today to being criminally charged. I know that people's reaction to the fact that the Manhattan DA's office grand jury session has expired, people believe that that means he most likely will not be criminally charged. But I think actually it's the opposite. I think if you look at all what's going on surrounding Donald Trump, I think what's going to happen is that it is more likely that he will be criminally charged than it has been ever before. And it's for the following reasons. First of all, today, 23 people were seated in a special grand jury in the state of Georgia. Now, a special investigative grand jury is something that sits for, in this particular case, a year. And that's very similar to the special grand jury that was impaneled in New York County, in that what it will do is it'll exclusively hear evidence about this particular matter. And in this case, it's 23 people sworn to secrecy. We're not going to get to hear what anyone said or did or anyone who went before the grand jury, but they will start hearing testimony from witnesses after May 24th, because that's when the Georgia primary elections are. So they're going to wait. The DA in Fulton County is going to wait until after that in order to start calling witnesses, but they're also going to subpoena documents and in the end, make a recommendation within a year to the district attorney of Fulton County on whether or not criminal charges should be brought against Donald Trump. Now, if you remember, this is regarding that January 2021 telephone call that Donald Trump made to Brad Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, where he basically said, find the votes, find enough votes.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
He also called the governor, Kemp, and asked him to hold a special election, a special presidential election. So I think in both of those instances, they're going to recommend that charges be brought that he did interfere with the presidential election. In addition, Alvin Bragg, although the grand jury expired last week, as we knew it was going to, when he said that there wasn't enough evidence yet, people suspected that therefore, and I did too, actually, that the criminal case was dead because the two lead prosecutors on the case, Mark Pomerantz and Kerry Dunn, resigned. So I figured, okay, that means the case is dead. But Alvin Bragg made the absolute unusual step of commenting on a pending investigation on April 7th, 2022, so last month, and said that the investigation is ongoing. And in fact, he put other very well-respected prosecutors on the case, people that I've worked with and who are excellent. And there's still a whole team in place, according to DA Bragg, working on the case. And I just don't think an elected district attorney would say that if it weren't true. Typically, they don't comment on pending investigations. In fact, you'll see it happen time and time again, where DAs will say, it's not my practice to comment on a pending investigation. But Alvin Bragg took the unusual step to do it because there was such, frankly, misinformation out there about what was happening. So I think he's potentially going to bring charges in that case. Again, I have no inside information whatsoever, even though I used to work there. But this is just my prediction, kind of seeing what's happening, the fact that he came out and said that. I also think it could be about the exaggerated values or undervalues of his properties, which is what the investigation under Cy Vance was about. That's been widely reported. Or it could be something else. You just don't know what potentially Alvin Bragg could be looking at. So, for example, the Trump Organization is under indictment already, and perhaps he's getting closer to indicting Donald Trump in that case. For example, recently in the last week, there was a motion filed in the civil case of Attorney General Letitia James of the state of New York, Attorney General. And there was a filing that had a transcript of a deposition of the president in a completely unrelated matter. This is a matter where he was deposed over a fight, basically, that happened in front of the Trump organization, the Trump Tower, because people were protesting, and they were protesting racist and other remarks that were made by the former president. And one of his bodyguards or security detail ended up pushing somebody or punching them or manhandling them. And as a result, that person is suing the president civilly. And he was deposed, and he was asked various questions about individuals in his organization, in the Trump organization. And in this completely unrelated case, he made statements about these individuals and about this one individual in particular, how Donald Trump was the person in control, and he was in control of who made decisions and made decisions about the Trump organization, et cetera. That might be helpful in tying him to the case against the Trump organization. And those statements, it appears, would be admissible as evidence, as an exception to the hearsay rule, because they were made against his penal interest. So that's yet another piece of evidence that Alvin Bragg has that he did not have before against Donald Trump. Finally, the Westchester District Attorney. So Westchester is another county here in New York. It's one of the suburbs of New York City, and it's north of Manhattan. And Trump has a golf course there. And there's a similar investigation going on about the exaggerated valuation or under evaluation, I'm not sure which, of that golf course. And that is another investigation that's pending against him, as is a federal grand jury that's been impaneled and is hearing evidence regarding January 6th. So on top of all of that, you've got the civil case with Tish James still looking and gathering evidence. And I just think there's a lot of activity going on. And the more we learn and the more we see, I just think it's getting closer and closer. And my opinion is that he's getting closer and closer to being charged. And I would not be surprised if we see charges in the next coming year or so, or maybe even sooner. So that's my prediction about everything that's going on right now. It's a lot, and that's what I think will happen.